haven't been taught how to want. We're born, we come into this world, and we immediately go into this kind of ego development where life is all about us. I've got 3 kids under 7. Anybody here who has kids or has seen kids, it's very, very about me and my bottle and my pacifier and my blanket and my stickers and my everything. And we go into this worldview, and we can't know any different. That's how we're born. That's how we're raised. And the thought of anything being outside of a want or a desire is foreign to a child. It's all in that space. And then we get older, right? And then we're taught this other idea, which is, everything's okay. You don't always need to be changing. You have to accept what is. Reality is where it is. And we get stuck because we have a child's mind when it comes to wanting. There's nothing wrong with wanting. In fact, in Kabbalah, right, the highest level of a person's soul, right, is connected to this thing called ratzon, which is will. It's desire. It's passion. It's going for something great and going for something big. And that seems counterintuitive or the opposite of this kind of more mindful acceptance, humble. I'm just happy with what I have. I don't need to go anywhere else. So it must mean that we have wires crossed, because if the highest part of who we are is this powerful desire, and yet desire seems to get us in a lot of trouble, how do we resolve that? So the words I like to use is surrendered wanting. It's a new way to want. It's a new way to look at how we desire what we have. The problem isn't the desire. The problem is never the will. The problem is not that you want a better career or a better job or a deeper spiritual connection or a better relationship with your kids or your brother. That's not a problem. That's good. If I were to tell you, yeah, just accept what is. Yeah, I'm in a bad relationship. Accept it. Okay? Accept that it's bad. Don't do anything about it. So that would be the worst thing that ever happened to you, because you would be stuck in a bad relationship. So acceptance is not about complacency. Acceptance is about being real with what is. It's not resisting what is. It's saying, this is it. And if there's a problem, this is a problem. If there's a lack of finances, it's recognizing there is a lack of, I don't have enough to get to this month's rent, whatever it is, right? It's being real with what's in front of you and not fighting it. And then having a desire for that to change, right? That's okay. Right? There's no contradiction between being real with your reality and wanting things to move in another direction. If a person were caught in quicksand, you wouldn't just tell them, accept it. Right? Accept it as they're sinking in, right? But if you try to struggle your way out of the quicksand, we know that you're gonna go down faster. So you do need to be calm and still and then figure out a way to get out. Surrendered wanting is to be able to let go of the attachment to the desire being a certain way. That's what it is. And that's what ratzon is. Real ratzon, like the highest part of the self, is I can want something new. I can want something amazing. And that is in alignment with a much greater will, with something way bigger than me. And because you're connecting to that much deeper place, you try to do it in a way where you're not attached. You don't need it to be the outcome that you have. You're going with an open heart. That's really going to be maybe the 2 words that we look over here. Desire with an open heart is a desire that's not going to drag you down, because you're accepting of the outcome. My understanding in your question is you want a particular outcome to happen, right? So let's say the example is you want tickets to your favorite concert, whatever. And now everything in your mind, everything in your heart, you're trying to drive it in that direction. Now, if you're willing to go hand in hand with a bigger reality, a higher, more infinite intelligence that's way bigger than what you can imagine, knowing that you think the best thing for you is the concert. However, there's a bigger vision that knows that the concert wouldn't work well for you, right? So if you can have that understanding in your approach, you can have an open heart even while you're trying to get somewhere, knowing that I want this. This is important to me. I'm trying to get to this place, but I can hold space for potentially there being something bigger or something better for me, right? There's something bigger or better in store for where I'm going. Whereas a closed heart is, this is the way, this is only the way, and if this doesn't happen, I'm going to be upset. The moment that's a person's approach, so that's a very controlling energy, which ultimately is back in more of like an ego mindset, a Yetzirah mindset, which cuts a person off from being able to get to where they want to get to. That's going to be one of the major things that's going to come up over and over again, which is why I started with this idea of being a receiver and a space creator, right? Because there's an idea that people who like this context, they want to learn about manifesting, they want to learn about co-creation. There's a lot of talk in the world of pseudo-spirituality and New Age spirituality, like books like The Secret and many other authors who are speaking in this wavelength, which make it sound like you're doing the doing, you're doing the creating, you're doing the manifesting. And the problem is that mindset, the way that it's phrased, I don't think they all mean it this way, but the way that it's phrased when it's discussed is you can have an exact point, exact end point, and you put all your energy trying to get there, and it's very easy to turn into kind of like a manic manifester, a controlling, a more egocentric manifester, and that itself is the opposite of how this whole thing works. It's really the antithesis of being able to work in tandem with God, with the universe, with the way that the world was built. When I speak about what and why, I'm speaking about what and why as opposed to how and where or how and when, questions that you just can't answer. If you say, how am I going to get to, if you've decided that, you want to make, an extra 10 grand this year, if you say, how am I going to get to it? So that may cause you to dive into doubt mode and fear mode because you don't have the answer. If you knew how to do it, you wouldn't be in a manifesting program. Probably. You would just go get your $10,000. If you were trying to get to a certain type of relationship and you knew how, so you're not looking it up. The same thing is with where and when. If you knew where to go and when it's going to happen, so life is easy. The problem is we don't have the answers to the where and the when, right? And those are questions that usually draw more doubt and more fear into our process. And those are going to be the things that ultimately are going to block us. They block us from everything, both practically and energetically. It's when a person is in doubt, right? The metaphor for that in Torah is this nation called Amalek. Amalek is the nation that comes and fights the Jewish people in every biblical story. Every time we end up in a doubting position, in a weakened position in our relationship to spirituality, they show up and they represent doubt. And that's why the numerical value of this nation, Amalek, is the same as Safek, which means doubt. So doubt is there, and it's fighting us. It's blocking our capacity to really be in an alignment with flow. When you ask what you want and you simply get clear on what it is, there's no doubt. I know what I want. And if you don't know what you want, that's okay, but at least you know you don't know. And now you can work on what it is you're trying to get to. If you don't have a goal, there's nothing wrong with that, but it just means that you're not going to go in a particular direction, and now you have work to do. If you don't know why, it's the same thing. And why usually is related to because I want to feel good, or because I want to feel loved, I want to feel accepted, I want to have a certain achievement in my life, I want to be able to contribute a certain way, I want to fulfill a certain purpose. When you think those thoughts, you are now inspired. It does the opposite of doubt. Instead of being confused about what it is you're going for, you're infused with energy and excitement because you know why you're doing it. So what and why are important because just to the essential process, right? If we're going to try to figure out what we want and how we're going to get there, so don't ask how, ask why. And that inspiration itself will get you in the right place. You've already set yourself up right. So that's one part. That's not the part you were speaking about, Malka, but that is the part that I was kind of referencing in that piece and in the meditation. And what you're talking about is a separate idea, which is how contemplative should we be before we try to get something in our life? Are we supposed to think about it? And the answer is yes. And I do believe our tradition has the deepest roots in relationship to this question and really to all questions. This is the foundation of everything that we're doing. That's what all of the Zohar and Kabbalah is based on. It's what all of the Gemara and the Talmud is based on. And inquiry is very important. So you have to ask, well, why do I want this? There is a famous commentary, toward the end of medieval, 15th century, names the Marsha, and he goes so far to say that maybe you shouldn't even, this power is so powerful, maybe we shouldn't do this at all, because maybe you will focus on the wrong thing. And then you'll be praying for the wrong thing in your life. And so maybe don't do anything. Don't try to manifest anything, because God forbid, you'll go in the wrong place, right? Which is, I think, also connected to what you're asking, right? Like, do we just try to get, and like get a new car, get a new house, get a new friend, get a new whatever, right? And he says, yeah, we want to be more thoughtful when it comes to where we're going, right? So asking why we want it is certainly implicit in why is also getting you driven up into this question of, does this serve another purpose other than just giving me pleasure? Does this serve another purpose other than feeding my ego, right? And hopefully if a person is thinking in that way, so they can get more clarity on going for the right things in their life, right? Happens to be, I'll say this parenthetically and then I'll let you respond, which is that opinion of the Marsha is an outlandish opinion. Nobody else says that. Everybody else says you should specifically try to pray for things you want, try to manifest the things you want in your life and go for it. I bring his opinion as a point just to bring out the idea that if you are not thinking, you may run in the wrong direction. You may try to get something that's not good for you, and therefore one should try to be in as much alignment with a higher ideal than just like get, like you said before, get, and whatever makes sense to me in the moment. As you were expressing your feeling here of the contradictoriness, I think the way you said it lends itself to what you're perceiving as a contradiction, which was, I think you're understanding surrender as I need to be open to it not working out the way that I want it to work out, right? That, the phrase itself isn't the surrender that I'm talking about when I say it. Because surrender doesn't mean I have to be open to it working out not the way I want it to work out. Surrender means I am open to it working out better than what I imagine. Meaning it's better. Meaning it's either we're moving towards what I want, or there's a higher, more divinely intelligent plan for where we're going. But again, so one is not surrendered if they feel like it's not going to be what I want, because at that point it's that attachment, right? The attachment itself to what you want it to be is in itself connected to fear. The more attached one is to it being a certain way, so if it doesn't go that way, so you're going to feel frustrated, irritated, or sad, or down, or anything negative. But when you're able to let go and know that you are working with a super will, which is going to be a fundamental difference between our perception, like, I bring it up because I don't think you can speak about manifesting in this generation in 2020 without bringing up The Secret. Yeah, this is a book that I don't know if people here are familiar with it, but like basically it made it very popular. But this concept has been around way before The Secret. It'll be around way after The Secret. But one of the things that they discuss in there is the concept that you can make whatever you want. You can create whatever you want. Any reality is possible. And there's a famous piece of Torah by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov where he comes to say this was exactly the mistake that the character Bilam makes in the Torah, where he thinks he can make whatever he wants happen. And the moral of the story is that you can use this power of co-creation and manifesting, and it will work for just about everything unless there's a super will that says no, right? Meaning when we say super will, we mean God will, we mean that there's something much more powerful at play. So the surrender is just the surrendering of it needing to come out a certain way, which of course is going to be hard if we, as soon as we deal with anything on the extremes, which I don't know what you're talking about. So I guess if we were speaking about this privately, if you're talking about, trying to get a, better, insurance plan, I guess it's not so big. But if you're talking about someone's health, or you're speaking about being able to get to, I don't know, we can think of all the extremes. So it's a lot more difficult because now you're dealing with the hardest parts of life. Which the hardest parts of life is when you're dealing with things which can bridge on tragedy. They can bridge on just general hopelessness for whenever you're dealing with big concepts, which you can't just sit here and say, oh, just surrender, Haley. Don't worry about it. It's fine. If it works out, great. If it doesn't work out, it's fine. Like it's extremely difficult to want to walk down there, which is why we have a whole session dedicated to this. It's directly proportionate to one's level of certainty in themselves as being a spiritual being and being part of a God reality, part of a spiritual reality that's bigger than the body, right? And so one's surrender is proportionate to that. Does that make sense? I think this is actually very similar to Haley's question, just coming from a different side of the coin, which is the idea of trusting the process is this idea of surrender, right? That's the idea. I surrender to what it's going to be. I accept the fact that maybe everything I do is not gonna work for this. On the other hand, I ask you, if you're sitting in front of a bowl of soup, and the spoon is sitting in that bowl, do you just trust the process and hope it's going to make it to your mouth? Because if you do, you're going to be very hungry. And it's going to be a long date. Would he tell you not to date? Of course not. Of course he would not tell you not to date. Would he tell you not to dream about being in a good relationship? Would he tell you not to think positively about yourself and about the type of guy you want to marry? I mean, all the things you do to manifest the type of guy you want to get, individually would say, of course you should do this, and of course you should do that, and of course you... And the answer is, those are all the things, right, that bring a person to you. And if we're going to talk about relationships just even for a moment, right, really, we attract into our lives... my mother would always tell me the language that she would use is water always meets its level, right? In Torah, it says, Dome is Moshe Gersht Dome, which means like attracts like. Literally, that's what the Maharal says, that it's where you're at. The like is bringing in that direction, right? We are attracted to people who are similar to us. It's a phenomenon, but that's the reality. So the way to bring the person in your life who you want to bring, right, is to do all the things you would do if you were working on yourself and trying to live that, that better life. So the simple answer to the question is, it's not a contradiction. You have to trust the process while you are trying to be, and I use this language in the video, and I try to use this language throughout the whole series, which is, we talk about manifesting, but this is really co-creation, right? Because we're working in tandem. This is a partnership between, you want to call it you and the universe, you want to call it you and God, you want to call it you and the infinite, whoever you want to call this between you, whatever you're relating to the higher power as, right? But that relationship that you have is working together, and that requires you doing your part also. Can you marry the wrong person? Simple answer to the question is, yes, no, absolutely not. What do I mean? Yes, maybe you don't marry the person that at the highest spiritual root level is your exact soulmate. The reason why I say no, you can't marry the wrong person is because if that's who you ended up marrying, that's also part of your process. And therefore, that's not a mistake. That's meant to happen also. You have to trust the process. You're doing your part. All you can worry about is your part. Leave the rest up to God. You do your part.